Now, welcome back. Almost 300 councillors in KwaZulu-Natal are illiterate. That's according to a skills audit report by the Cooperative Governance Department. It's an alarming finding, of course, raising questions about the effectiveness of municipalities, and perhaps one could contend that's why we find ourselves in the mess that we do. Well, let's get the reaction from Mlungisi Ndlovu, the Public Service Association's manager down in KZN. Mlungisi, good morning. I appreciate your time. Help me understand what we mean by illiterate. It's a very broad term. What's your understanding of what that means in this context?
Indeed, if you look at the report that was done by COGTA after the cabinet decisions, because there was many concerns around the councillors who are unable to read and write. But you'd also appreciate that COGTA department, under leadership of the head of department, Mr. Tubani, they've taken this initiative to done the skills audit, which tells us that you've got about 15% of 1,994 councillors that are unable to write and read. But the question is, how do you expect the councillors that cannot be able to read and write to provide service delivery? Remember that most of our department, where our members operate in the municipality land, it is for these reasons that we believe, as PA says, that municipalities should take responsibility to ensure that they are well equipped. We do respect that these councillors were elected by communities, but the requirements need to be able to be changed because you need strong leadership. You will also appreciate that Auditor General raised questions about poor financial management, underspending in most of these municipalities. It is for these reasons that we need really now to look at the Electoral Act to ensure that they are service delivery, because there are departments where they operate, there are challenges of water. How do you then expect them to comprehend and understand different reports and able to hold officials accountable?
Yeah, it's not to suggest these councillors that can't write or read are unintelligent. They're just not formally trained in reading or writing. I imagine we're talking at a very basic level here. Mlungisi, do we know if the literacy has got to do with being able to read and write in English, or are they unable to read or write even at a basic level in their home language? I know it sounds like a silly question, but we know the illiteracy rates in our country. So are we talking about not being able to do it in English, or is this even in their home language, whatever that might be?
So if you look at the report that was done by COGTA, in actual fact, all the departments were expected to run the skills audit to check the level of illiterates amongst the employees. It simply says they are unable to write and read in English and also in their home languages. Remember, they also look in terms of the qualifications. It's only 10% of them that have degree. It tells us that we should be able to move with speed in addressing the issues of skills development. So if you talk about the read and write, remember, when you deal with issues of the councils, it's one of the complex process in terms of the proceeding. Otherwise, we'll have councillors who will go and attend meeting on the basis to go there and vote. So they will not be able to understand issues communities that have. I can give you a classical example. One of the hospital at Guamash, Dr. Priska Isaiah Sem, Guamash community, they were raising issues that people who are not local should not be employed there. There is an understanding that councillors should be able to brought to community to say you've got doctors and nurses. These are some of the things that raise concern. But what is good about COGTA is that the report, they've indicated that they've tabled the report to 54 municipalities to ensure that they are able to implement illiteracy development, because you need to be ensured that people are able to understand the basic need. You will remember that in 2008, the same issue that was raised, but it seems as if municipalities are not taking action. That's why in some of the communities, certain departments, the municipality council will decide to disconnect electricity for schools. Even some of the social development, they will be unable to service communities. It is for these reasons that we believe the skills development revolution need to be restarted and reconnected to ensure that we address some of these particular issues. It's not only the issues that they cannot be able to read and write. We said some of them, they don't have post-matric qualifications. So how do you then expect them to run the municipalities? So if you look at the communities that protest, that block hospital, that block schools, it's because there's lack of communication and lack of leadership. But it's not all of them. There are councillors that are able to write and read. Some of them, they've got qualification, which we need to be able to give them credit to them. So as we have said, we need to be able to take actions in terms of how do we then address these particular issues. It's not only the issues of KZN, because if you look at state SSA, they talk about 4 million people that they cannot be able to write and read. So these are the basic things that you need to be able to attend so that you can be able to address issues of poor financial management, issues of budgeting, issues of infrastructure. You need people that can comprehend and understand, because
and if you're not able to understand what you're reading as well, how are you able to lead a municipality? How are you able to lead a community to a better solution if you aren't able to, it seems, understand the concepts of what you're reading and trying to convey in messaging? Mlungisi, I want to ask you this. While this plan is to change the regulations, in your mind, what needs to happen to these councillors that are illiterate or are unable to read? Should they be removed from their position?
You know, it might not be our call to say they must be removed. Remember that you've got Skills Development Act, which is very clear to say in the workplace skills plan, all the employees, whether they are councillors, whether they are in the public service, you must have an HRD committees. You must make sure that they are being capacitated. You must make sure that you bring the prior recognition. You must make sure that you take them through the apex, because there is no one who says they cannot be able to be taken through to that process. We are saying we're talking about 15% of these councillors that need to be upgraded, but we also call upon all the public servants, people, if they know that they don't have grade 12, they need to be able to take this opportunity. And also HR in the municipalities and also in the public side, they must play this practical role of skills development, because we understand as PSA in the province that everyone needs to be given that particular opportunity. But the question is, are the municipality ready as their COPTA table this intervention? When COPTA table this intervention, is municipality themselves, are they ready to ensure that they capacitate their own employees? And it's
all about the capacity, especially ahead of next year's elections as well. It's going to be very, very important. But you've painted a very bleak picture as to what can happen if you have the wrong people in the wrong position, especially those that aren't able to read or write. Mlungisi, thank you very much indeed. It's certainly going to be a big debate.